Hi, everybody. Let's get started, shall we? My name's Corey Fry. I'm the exhibitions manager here at the Del Plain. Jim Roberts moved from California to Carroll County in 1970. He dropped out of UMBC to buy a small piano moving business that he operated from 1976 to 1995. Then from 1995 to 2019, he taught high school in Carroll County after completing his undergraduate degree. He went on to receive a Master's of Fine Arts from Towson University in 2000 with a concentration in sculpture. And he was the first student to have a thesis show off campus from Towson in over 20 years, which was held at the Mill River Gallery in Ellicott City. Jim retired in 2019, and he is one of the artists that is a part of the NOMA Gallery here on Market Street. And this is the second exhibition that I've had the pleasure of working with Jim on here at Del Plain. He had a show back in 2020, up on the second floor. I think you're in for a treat, so I think Jim is going to take some questions. So be thinking as he talks if you have any questions at all, and let us know if you need anything. Give it up for Jim Roberts.
Thank you all for coming out on this kind of a rainy day. It's always a good day to be in the gallery, and today is a especially good day to be in the gallery. I did want to comment on the bio stuff. I did a talk here with two other artists last year, and I think it was for the 250th anniversary of Frederick County. Do I have that right? Okay. And I was the third person of three to talk, and I was sitting there listening to the biographical information that was coming in on the other artists, and I'm going, oh my God, these guys are heavy hitters, people. The Venice Biennale, and have works international collections and all this stuff, and so when it was my turn to come up, Corey introduces me, Jim Roberts. He lives in Westminster. He was a teacher, and he has a cat, and he goes, oh, correction, had a cat. So anyway, so it was. I decided to put a little bit more into my bio stuff for you guys. A couple of other small things from my childhood that might be shed some light on how I do my art, how I think about my art. My dad was in the military. I was born in Michigan. My dad was in the military, and we traveled around frequently every couple of years. And he was stationed first in Japan, and then I had two brothers born there, and then we moved to Germany. And I was a little older then. I was in maybe 7, 8 years old by then, possibly 9. And my dad was also a big camper. He liked to travel and explore. And so we took trips frequently. And we took a 2-week trip as a family to Italy, and went to Rome, Pompeii, Pisa. And some of these images I remember from when I was a kid. Going into, when we were in Rome, we went to the Sistine Chapel, and I remember looking up at Michelangelo's work on the ceiling there, and wondering when we were going to eat and that kind of stuff. One thing that was really impactful for me was we went to Pompeii, and of course in '79, Vesuvius erupted and buried the city, and it entombed these people in the ash. And the ash was hot enough to incinerate them, but it left these sort of voids there in almost like a mold. And when the archaeologists started digging up Pompeii, they uncovered these sort of tombs, and they poured plaster into them, and they could recreate the figures that had been entombed in this ash, and it was very powerful to me. Even as a young kid, I still remember that imagery, and so that always sort of stuck with me. A funny thing from Japan, I was only about 4 and a half then, and my mother, I was the oldest of 2 at that time, and my mother had another child, a son, my brother John, and she was gone. Back in those days, the mothers were in the hospital for 5 days or so, And when she came back, she brought back the little bundle, and she invited me over to introduce me to my new brother, and she says that I said, "Hey, he doesn't look like he's Japanese." So so I don't know. That just serves as a kind of thing that stuck with me. But anyway, so on this particular resume, I pumped it up a little bit and added a couple of things to it to hopefully flesh it out some. Perhaps I should get George Santos to help me with my next one. I do also want to thank the Delaplane here. This is my second solo show. They've been very kind to offer up their gallery to artists and to allow me to come in and show work here on 2 different occasions. And so I'm very appreciative of that. I also have a special thank you to Corey. Corey's been great working with him and helping me out. I was here until 10:30 last night putting the finishing touches on things and cleaning up the gallery. And Corey's been very helpful, making sure things move along smoothly. And for those of you that don't know, Corey's an artist in his own right as well and does some very interesting work, both painting and sculptural work. And if you ever get a chance to see one of his shows, I'd strongly recommend that. And I have a special shout out to my partner, Patrice Gallagher. Patrice has been my life coach. And I write that on all my forms at the hospital, life coach. And no one's questioned me, so it must be a thing, So anyway, she's very helpful with me in terms of bouncing ideas off of her, and I have her look at my work, and that has always been an important quality to me, to get honest feedback about what I'm doing, and she's very honest. And so sometimes that's a problem. I mean, I end up making the final decision, but certainly getting her feedback has been very helpful. And I think I do want to say that the work Under the Influence, this is the second iteration of it. The first was at NOMA in 2022, April of 2022. And so for those of you, I know a number of folks saw that show, and I hope you find there are some different pieces in there. And because it's an installation, somehow, how the gallery is shaped can affect how the work is installed. So that's very important as well. But there is one piece in there that's pretty much the same as it was, and that was the E Pluribus Unum, the big gun. But anyway, what I want to say is that I divide my work up into 3 basic categories, this particular installation. It has one that deals with the aesthetic of the work, how it looks and how I use the art elements and the principles of design to form it. The other is the actual production of it, which I really like. That's the most important thing to me, is how the work is made. And I find that, sort of the journey is more important to me than the destination. Not that I mind the destination, but I do like figuring out things. And to me, that is really the sort of the buried quality within my work that I really like. And then finally, there's the content. And the content of this particular installation is pretty divisive in many ways. I think all of us have loved ones, friends, neighbors that have guns. Some of you have guns in here. I have a gun, and so I respect that. And I think that there's a lot of politics that enters into this, how we feel about the guns we have, et cetera, et cetera. And that's an area I don't feel really comfortable in getting opening up into a forum like this. I think that it can create some difficult kind of, I think it can create some problems for us in some ways. So I would prefer that we confine the talk more to how the work is made, what you think of the work in terms of how it looks. Certainly you're welcome to offer up a comment or two about the nature of where we are today as a country. But those are areas that I feel I'm not very versed in. I mean, I'm aware of them, but I'm not capable of discussing political things. I had a conversation with Jamie Raskin. He asked me not to discuss the Second Amendment or anything constitutionally oriented, and I asked him not to do any sculpture. So basically, I just wanted to make sure that we know that. But if you have something like that guy is then I understand that. But I want my work to be in some ways kind of neutral so that everybody can approach it comfortably. I was sitting in the gallery writing down these notes, and there was a young lady, in fact they're over there, there's this little girl over here coming in looking at things. And how old are you? How old are you? 7. She's 7 years old, and she was able to relate to things in a way that I thought was very interesting, how things look, the shapes of them, the color, that type of thing. And I think in many ways, art should be accessible to all people at various levels. I try to build a concept that's in there that also challenges people who want to be challenged at a slightly higher level to maybe provoke them or pique their curiosity on something. And I think those kinds of things are also important. And so I want my work to resonate with a wide range of people and ages. So let me see, I think I covered pretty much everything. I'm also not an expert on guns. I'm not an expert on school shootings. My research is pretty basic. I do research and look at things and see how they can be translated into sculptural pieces in many cases. So, I mean, if you have who were the 2 guys that were at Columbine? What year was that? That kind of thing. So those some of you will know more about it than I do. So my job, I feel, is not to be that historian, but to be the person who is able to, in a different way, translate what I've seen, read, experienced, and also am aware of. I will close on this part before I get into the images that I was a teacher until 2019, and my last teaching gig, and this is in my artist statement incidentally, my last teaching gig was at a Westminster high school, which is a comprehensive high school in Carroll County, and we have numerous faculty members. How many teachers do we have in here? Do we have any teachers? Just you, Carla? Oh my goodness. Okay, well, yeah, me, right. Anyway, faculty meetings and in-services are very important to communicate information in the school. And one of the last faculty meetings I went to before I retired was called Stop the Bleed. And it was by our school nurses. We had 2 nurses, and one of them or both of them came, I don't remember exactly. But it had to do with school shootings that, they seemed to start becoming, they were going to be with us, basically. In fact, there's just a little aside. There have been 400 school shootings since Columbine. So not all of them are big, mass shooting events. But anyway, that's quite a few. And the Stop the Bleed was a really interesting kind of turning point for me. And I suspect somewhere in there, that's when I started thinking about the gun issue. And the kind of the sense or the takeaway from this meeting was that we're not going to stop school shootings, so we need to move it up to a different level. We need to approach it differently, and that was to help the students that had been shot. And so, how to basically do triage in the classroom, and if a student has been shot. And so, use rags, put whatever you can on there to have them hold it, have a classmate to hold it, this kind of thing. And I thought that was a kind of interesting, almost surreal thing to be listening to in a school. So, on that happy note, we'll move forward here. This is one of the first pieces that I made. It's called E Pluribus Unum. Anybody know what that means? What's that mean? Right, exactly. And so if you see this head on, it's sort of a silhouette of a AR-15, a generic AR-15. And it's 8 foot long. And this was in the first show. But what's interesting about this is when you go to the side view of it, so you can see that the image is made up of crosses that are a metaphor for deaths. And a special thanks to Thomas Sterner, who has helped me a couple of times to move this thing around. It's pretty unwieldy, but they're all lead crosses that were made from bullet slugs that had been melted down. And I don't want to misrepresent it. The bullets were things that I had made and then melted them down. So if I had extra bullets, I'd throw them in there and melt them, and then I made these crosses. So this is E Pluribus Unum. This is called Each and Every Town USA, and it's a takeoff on Every Town USA, the gun control individuals. And it's made out of metal houses. And in fact, I have to, Corey, are you still here? I have to talk to you. 2 of those are not for sale. So we probably should mark that somewhere. And each house, it's to represent, it's a metaphor for a village, and each house contains object or objects in there that sort of relate somehow to guns and how they're part of our everyday life and in our households. Here's a close-up of one, and it's got castings of little various kinds of guns, AR-15s, rifles, there's pistols in there. And I bought these small guns off of eBay. And they're like G.I. Joe 1/12 size or whatever the scale is. And I make my own molds. So there's a high temperature RTV, which is room temperature vulcanization, that I can use to pour lead into. So I pour multiples of these, pouring the lead into the molds and then sort of reaping them and collecting them. And if you have a question at any time, please speak up. Be real informal. Yes.
I do, and I don't know if they're, at the point of the presentation germane or if they come later or whatever. And they're all about art, so no worries. Mm-hmm. So the first question, you alluded to the different stages of what you like more. I'm always being really interested by the dichotomy or the difference between the ideation and the fabrication. Mm-hmm. And you very explicitly said that you view the second as the part that it's more interesting to you. Whereas there are a lot of other artists that do the opposite.
Oh, absolutely, right.
Even employ fabricators, and they think that they are the artists, and the fabricators, it's the fabricators that can. Right. A work can be redone as the need might be. So that was my.
Yeah, I guess for some sculptors who are doing large bronzes, they're doing wax or clay maquettes, and then they farm that off to a foundry that can make that. This is a little different. That you can't have a foundry. If I was making bronzes, I wouldn't open up a foundry to make my own work. But for me, making things is the process. That's not for every artist. I do not speak for every artist. I barely speak for me. But it's something that I understand. Different artists have different approaches, but I do understand that. Did that answer your question? Okay.
I have 2 more, but
Oh.
Maybe there's
okay. All right.
further points later on. you tell me when.
Jim, I have a quick
Yeah, sure.
What precautions do you have to take to work with molten lead?
That is an excellent question. And there are gases that are given off when the lead is melting. I usually do it outside, and the air helps to keep that, moving around, and I get mostly fresh air. If it's too cold outside, well, actually it's not too cold. If it's too hot outside to work, I will go inside and I have an exhaust fan that I use, or if it's raining, or if there's something that keeps me. But there are masks you can use if you're grinding lead or have particles, but melting it, the masks. So you need special kind of mask with little carbon filters and stuff, and certainly washing your hands, frequently. COVID taught us that. So this piece is called Under Siege, and it's just sort of a look at a combination of works in there, the hard rain and also the houses. So I thought this was kind of an interesting little kind of setup that sort of speaks to both of those works. This is, I'm confused here. Let's go back. Yeah, I don't know. I was hitting it and it was jumping around. And okay, we got this. Okay, here it is right here. Okay. This is called Patron Saint. And before I launch into it, I do want to thank Bree Hughes. Where are you, Bree? Bree was instrumental. Bree is a glass artist and an artist in general, but she works with glass. And this is a fairly large piece. The piece in the center where the image is, Bree helped me. Actually, I helped Bree. Bree did the bulk of the work, and that was kind of unusual for me because I normally do all the work myself. But in this particular case, I deferred to somebody who was more knowledgeable and had a sensitivity to it that I didn't have. So I really appreciated all her help on doing the work. This is an image. Does anybody know who this is besides Bree? You know who? Yeah, Wayne LaPierre, who was the executive vice president of the NRA, who currently is being sued by Letitia James in the Southern District of New York for abuses in money. But he was the face of the NRA for 3 decades. And without getting, I said I wouldn't get into all the political stuff, but I think it's very important that you look him up and know a little bit about him. I think that kind of knowledge is important to have because it gives you a broader understanding of what's going on, how we got where we are to some degree in our country today. The NRA is a very old institution in our country. And was started off as, does anybody know, what was the NRA started off as?
As a sportsmanship.
That's right, in gun safety and how to handle, the proper way. And it turned into something very different. But this is a piece that I was told this is the first time anybody utilized the window in that gallery. Because when I went in there and I saw this big space, this big opening, and there's a blind there, but I thought that could be utilized in some way that is important, and so I came up with the idea for the sort of making a almost a religious like glass, like a cathedral, and I think that speaks to how guns occupy a certain amount of our lives in our country too. That's a very important part for some people. And this is called Patron Saint. These are 2 pieces that I made. These are the most recent pieces. The one on the left is called Memento Vivere, and the one on the right is Memento Mori. Do you guys know what Memento Mori means? What does it mean, Memento Mori?
Remember that you will die, and it's denomination of certain types of small object or art object that were collected, such as small skeleton or whatever, in the 1600s.
Right, Vanitas paintings, right, exactly. So, memento mori, the hourglass, is actually a very famous memento mori. It shows the passage of time, and literally I think it means remember to die, but it's translated in remember you will die. And anyway, I changed it. I made the memento mori hourglass memento vivere, which means remember to live. And I sort of threw it on its head in a sense, and created the abacus, and the abacus is the 21st century memento mori, so it's replacing the hourglass, and that is the counting of deaths, and that's what we've been doing. We're counting school shootings, we're counting the number of guns, we're counting these different things, and I thought an abacus became a more appropriate memento mori for the 21st century. The hourglass, if we go to the memento vivere, which I know is a little confusing, and Patrice cautioned me. She says, don't do that, it's going to be confusing to people. And I said, no, I'm going to do it anyway. But that is filled with lead, powdered lead. I took out the sand and added lead, and it's actually lead for golf clubs, for weighting golf clubs. And I wanted to change it, and I took bullets that I made, the lead slugs, and I filed them down and gathered the lead from the bullets and mixed it in with the lead from the golf club stuff, and mixed it in there to create a more like this is lead from bullets kind of a thing. It's not all lead from bullets, but most of it is. And that was a really interesting process of doing the hourglass. Hundreds of hours in that.
Is it operable? Or
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, you can turn it. Yes, it's on a bearing, and it turns. Sometimes it will start right away. Other times it does not. Just turn it again. It'll tap. Yeah. If you break it, you bought it. But anyway, yeah, it was. The little girls were turning it over there, and I don't know if it's a static charge in there that causes it to hold up. It may be the filings I put in. Well, you know, it's sealed off, but probably not airtight because I had to drill through the glass to get the sand out. But it does something really curious. Well, first of all, I'll tell you what the timing is. There are 138 deaths approximately per day from guns in our country. And if you divide that out, you get roughly 5.5 deaths per hour. And I rounded up to 6, so every 10 minutes or thereabouts, there's a death in our country from a gunshot. And that's why that was the purpose of making the piece. If you turn it and time it, and some of you will do this and say, wait a second, now that didn't take 10 minutes. You get varying times. In one direction, it's about 8.5 minutes. Is that what we got? Yeah. And the other direction, it's almost 10. So the direction that's almost 10 is the accurate one. Okay? And these are close up. And of course, the abacus is made up of bullets. If you handle, they're both interactive pieces. If you handle the abacus, be sure to wash your hands when you're done. You don't get much off of it, but just don't eat directly. Don't handle the bullets and then eat. This is a variation of the first time of Hard Rain, and this is the second time this has been set up, but the first one was Sans desk and chair. I wanted to do something different for this show, for people who saw the previous show, and so I set up this little tableau kind of thing with the bullets in the background, raining down on a school desk. And there's a close-up of it. If you look carefully, you can see the monofilament that goes down into the bullet there. Nice picture, Corey. Looks good. I think that's it. Any questions? Go ahead.
I don't want to monopolize if there is.
Oh, they're bashful.
So I have two more questions. So one, you alluded, it's still artistic, so we're not talking about optics. So one, you alluded in the window piece, you
Mhm.
know, the iconography, etc., almost a geography, if you will, that we have. What is your relation? So the repetition, you know, of the material, like repetition of the bullets, so repetitions. How does that relate to this type of artistic language, such as in pop, for example? And that's one question. The second question, still artistic, it's got to do what really resonated with me, you know, besides the obvious things that we won't talk about, but artistically, what it resonated in me is the use of the objects, such as the desk, the abacus, the little house, you know. And I was not trying to be rude, but I was trying to Google an artist that is really important and I don't remember, that uses pieces of furniture, particularly like iron beds and things of that sort. I remember I saw it last time at the Fondazione Prada in Milan, but it's really famous, so you probably saw it, you know, there. And so I wanted to know, in those two instances, one is kind of like the pop or repetition thing, and the other, and the iconography, you know, in terms of the glorification and, you know, sanctification of these images. And the other part is the use of the domestic object, and two artistic questions.
Well, the first on the repetition. Repetition for me is very important. I think it sets up a pattern in our brains as well, and working on things that are repetitive, for some reason, don't bore me as much as they should. I don't know why. When I start like making the bullets, which is very repetitious, you know, I get in sort of this mode where I can start, you know, just cranking them out. Making the bullets takes hundreds and hundreds of hours to do. And the repetition I see is sort of a factory-like kind of assembly line kind of thing. So I make up jigs and I do different things to create those. As far as the images in my work, and please correct me if I'm not answering properly here in terms of your question, but I think familiar imagery is very important to me, and it's important to me on a variety of different levels. First of all, it allows people who are coming in to see the work to connect almost immediately with it on some level. So the houses, you know, oh, I like the houses. A guy that cut the houses out for me on a laser cutter called them bird houses. You know, and they're not bird houses, but you know, yeah, I guess they look like bird houses. So, but anyway, so it's also important to me to have that kind of familiarity with the objects to bring people in. And then I work with juxtaposition of objects. And I think that is equally important to me, to how objects can interact with one another and how you can manipulate what people take in. And so the objects inside the little doll, you know, the little high chair and the crib and that kind of thing are all just doll furniture. And but people can relate to those things, and I think it helps people to see things that are familiar, to immediately be able to connect, but then to tweak it in some manner to change it in a way that also leads people on and allows them to think more deeply about things, I think. Is that okay? Go ahead.
I just want to compliment you on your, my day job is graphic design. I'm also an artist, but I love how you're, you know, like the big gun pluralism and how you're taking one iconic, these days, unfortunately, I think we all know that shape of that
Mm-hmm.
assault rifle kind of
thanks.
had a very
Yeah.
strong
Iconographic? Right.
Say
Okay.
iconography.
I gotcha, okay.
And when I approach logo design, it's kind of like you take oftentimes logos are one or
Mhm.
two different ideas and you meld them into one, the juxtaposition of those two. So I just want to say.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind.
Your work is very powerful and it helps.
I like the, I've had people, and I've seen this a number of times, people will see the gun from a distance. And I remember one guy specifically talking to whoever he was with, said, man, this guy really likes guns. And then, he came up to it, and then you could see the crosses, and that changes it automatically, So you have something that's familiar, and then the being, and I got that idea from Chuck Close. Chuck Close put these little things together, I'm like, yeah, I'll borrow from him. He's made his money. So. Anybody else? Any other questions? Hey, Mary, how you doing? Go ahead, Susan.
Has your artwork always utilized metals?
No, I started off kind of painting and drawing. I love drawing. Metals was something when I entered the MFA program at Towson. This was in 1996. As a teacher, you have to get your master's. And it was a second career for me. And do you remember what my first career was?
Yes,
Okay, gotcha. I used to do that with the kids all the time. I remember this. It was my third or fourth year at Westminster, and it was an upper level class, and I had students that I had there before, and I would quiz them on things. And I said, "Who remembers what I did before I became a teacher?" This one kid raised his hand. He said, "You were an exotic dancer." And I thought, oh my God, that is hilarious. And, real sarcastic kid, but I thought that was clever. So, but anyway, so to get into the MFA program, I was encouraged to do metals, welding, and that kind of stuff. And I like it. I really like it. There's a certain immediacy to metal. You can do things with metal that you can't do with anything else, and it rusts. So what's not to like? So.
Did you ever use, pianos have a lot of metal in them. Did you ever utilize?
Oh no, by then pianos were, they were in the rear view mirror. So I'm paying for piano moving now. Backaches and body issues, so, but anyway. Corey, I'm sorry, go ahead, Caroline.
I think the addition of the child's desk to the piece with the raining bullets is fantastic.
No, thank you.
It's a gut punch.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it is. Yeah.
Which is the scale of that little desk.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
And pretty black.
Yeah.
If I remember that artist on YouTube, because he's all about children's island's bed and children's armoire. I don't remember, but
It'll come to you.
I think, I was just immediately struck of that imagery as well. That you use.
You mentioned that what you did in your previous life reminded me, since we're kind of dealing with gun violence in that subject matter, Saving Private Ryan, Tom Hanks' character, his men keep wondering what he did before he was in the Army. He's an English teacher. They're going through all these horrors of war.
Right,
and they're all still wondering, because he doesn't tell them till near the end. So, but that was cool.
Anybody else?
I have a question.
Yeah.
It shows up in the gun piece, but it's shown up in a bunch of your other work, the beeswax.
Yes.
Could you talk just a little bit about why beeswax? Like, what's the importance for you?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I did a lot of beeswax pieces previously. I see beeswax as sort of a skin, and they have wax museums, and the people that look, like they're real people, and so I see that as a quality to it. It also has a textural quality that I like, and it allows you to also bury things in it, and it's, you know, sort of translucent, and it can be opaque if it's piled on high enough. In fact, I used to belong to a little group, and every time I would make something, bring it in, Thomas said, "You can't make stuff out of beeswax anymore." But I used a lot of it, and so I like those qualities with the beeswax. I think it's really, and there's a nice aroma to it. And there was an artist, I've forgotten her name, but she did these large sculptural pieces, like monolithic type pieces out of beeswax. You know, it's like a foot thick and stuff like that. Really interesting kind of thing. There's Anatoly, she did heads that were soap, chocolate, and beeswax too. So, lick and lather, right, exactly right, yeah. But she didn't do it with the beeswax and that, but I think she's used beeswax
And also
before.
the artist that uses Kanaruba, like, what's that?
It's a wax.
Right, it's like, but he's an African guy
Mm,
that uses, it's the whole yellow
Right,
wax. It's not
right.
bee wax, but it's a plant wax.
Right.
And he does the same idea.
Right. And you can get it bleached too. And bleach, they usually use it for cosmetics and stuff. And I like the sterile kind of look of the white beeswax as well. And it's, and in some ways it really is an interesting material to work with. There's a certain fragility to wax as well. So, you know, if it sits out in a hot car, you're going to have the wax on the floor, so, or the seat. So, go ahead. Yes.
I'm wondering if you're familiar with Stephanie Mercedes' work with guns, with real guns, real bullets.
I am not. Is she?
She's in DC.
Okay.
She has a workshop there,
Mhm.
and she was at Towson for a while, I think, as a teacher.
Oh, really? Okay.
But not in the 90s. She's much younger than we are.
Right.
But anyway, she does some amazing. She melts everything down and creates bells. She calls them Liberty bells.
Right. I have heard of individuals who can access. I tried accessing those guns to like police departments.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
I was wondering because I actually would like to. I have a couple of guns that I would like to donate to her, and I've emailed her and she hasn't responded. So.
Yeah, I don't. If you could send me a link, that would be great. You said Mercedes is the last name. What's the
Her last name is Mercedes, Stephanie.
Stephanie Mercedes. Yeah, I am not familiar with her work or the name.
Well, I'll get your information.
Yeah, that would be great.
She has a website.
Yeah.
They do theatrical performances, very dramatic.
Mhm.
Unlike you, she's out there politically.
Right.
Really out there. And, yeah.
I'm afraid to do that, to be honest with
And
you.
I hear that.
Yeah,
It's
right.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we all have different, strengths and weaknesses,
Right.
and
she's a young girl woman.
Right,
and
right.
She's queer and she's just,
yeah.
her perspective is really, she wants to make a political impact and she's doing that.
That's good for her. I think that's important.
I think
you know?
Jim makes a political impact.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen a number of his shows, and every
Yeah.
time I see it, I go, Jim's doing something about politics.
I didn't
Yeah.
know this was why he wasn't.
Yeah.
It's not my intention at all.
Yeah.
But I mean, I understand what your intention was, but I think that there are different ways of looking at the scenario. I certainly understand your intention and appreciate it.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen other artists take guns and make like shovels out of them. Sort of beating swords in the plowshares, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really interesting, and I really, I was at a dinner party, and someone mentioned it was what's it, Chris, she's not even paying attention. Chris, I was like, what was a dinner party? What is he, the minister? Chris?
I guess so.
Right. He was involved with this sort of gun buyback thing with the police or something like that, and I got like, ooh, I said, how can I get into that and maybe get these guns, but there are laws that surround that.
I'm sure there's a bunch of issues that you have to have ownership.
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. It's very complicated,
Yeah.
but anyway, Corey, how are we looking on time? Great, it's over? Or okay, any more questions? Anybody have any questions or comments? Oh, go ahead.
Do you adhere from your beginning to end? Is your end the same as what you envisioned when you began?
Sometimes it's very close. I can see a piece of work in my head and build it from there. But I always work from drawings and stuff. When you're doing sculpture, you don't want to be welding bunches of pieces of metal together and say, ooh, I don't like this, you know. So it's something that I try to come up with. I don't build maquettes necessarily, but I do drawings and do, you know, get an idea of what direction to go in. Sometimes, I think most of the times I'm able to follow through and get something that's very close, but also the process of working it, other things are revealed to me. And I think that it can really improve the quality of the piece, and it wasn't a direction I was going to go in, you know. So, right, so there's still some fluidity in all of that when I'm doing it. And the concept for me is important, and it gives me guardrails. So if I'm making a piece of work and I have a concept already in mind of what it's going to be, how it fits into a show, if I do something to it, I can use the concept as, is this a direction to go in? So if it doesn't fit the concept, it may be something that I don't do. But I will do things that are just purely for artistic things. For me, how the work looks when it's done is the most important thing, you know, in terms of success. I think a good piece of art is a good piece of art. But the journey is what is really important to me in terms of the making of it, because I really enjoy that. I love making things. If I wasn't making art, I would be doing kitchen cabinets. I would do it and love it, you know. So, go ahead.
What's next, either for this exhibit, for this part of your production, or for the next production?
Okay, so that's a good question, and thanks for asking that. My next show is at NOMA. I have a solo show in November, and it's called Invasive Species. And it had to do, it's an idea I got, I was listening to the political rants that were going on about immigrants. And I thought, you know, we're all kind of immigrants here, you know. And so I look at the word invasive species as we are the invasive species, and things like guns are invasive species, and these kinds of things. So that's the show I'm working on, and I've got to get busy on it. Yes. November will be here before you know it. I remember when I first I signed up for this show about 2 years ago, and it's like, yeah, man, that'll never arrive. And also, it's like, I was here last night till 8:30 hanging bullets. I was here till 10:30. 10:30 is when I left, when I finally got out of here. But I was hanging them up to about 9:30, and then I had an hour of cleanup, hanging these bullets. You know, it's like, oh my God, why am I doing this? So, is that it? All right, great. Thank you, folks.